Hey, everybody, welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast episode. My name is Sam Thrash, and I am your show host over here at Fall Obsession Podcast. Appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. This week, my guest is Miss Amy Hall. She is the podcast host of the Her Wild Outdoor Show, and she is just an amazing outdoor enthusiast, an advocate for respecting the kill, amazing hunter, and a mentor to many others. Really enjoyed my conversation with her and getting to spend an evening talking to her and sharing a passion for hunting in the outdoors. She's a very inspiring individual, and I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. Before we get there, Hoot Camo is a podcast partner. Really loving my Hoot gear. I started rocking it last year in Colorado, was the first time I ever wore it on, and then brought it back to Texas. I've worn it in tree stands, hunting from the ground. I've worn it in Colorado in the flatlands, CRP fields. I've worn it in the snow. And I can't say enough about the versatility of the pattern itself and then the quality of the gear. Not only is it warm, but it has held up against the brush, the elements, the pokey, prickly stuff better than I could have ever imagined. So if you guys are looking for that next set of camouflage, if you want to think outside the box a little bit, as far as what a pattern can do for you, then go check out everything that Hoot has to offer. We also have plenty of content with Hoot Camo on our pages, whether it's on the podcast or gear review videos, whatever it might be. So be sure that you guys take a look and see what you think. If you do want to place an order, then use the code FallObsession15, and that will save you guys some money at checkout. HootCamo.com. The Outdoor Call radio app is also a podcast partner. Outdoors Dan from Respect the Game TV. He created an app that you can download on any device where you can stream hunting shows and podcasts on a loop every single day. You will catch Fall Obsession podcast streaming on that loop on Mondays. That's the same day as our new publications, as well as tons of other hunting shows and podcasts that we all know and love. So go download the Outdoor Call radio app today. It is free. You can start streaming immediately, and go follow Outdoors Dan on social media. He does a couple of different live radio show broadcasts every week. And even if you're not local to those radio stations he's on, you can catch those live broadcasts streamed on his Facebook page. So go download the Outdoor Call radio app and go follow Outdoors Dan. Elite Archery is a Fall Obsession partner. Been rocking an Elite bow for several seasons now. Got an ethos on the way. I can't wait. Super excited about it. I can talk to you guys all day long about how great Elite bows are and how much I love it, but the ultimate test on if it's right for you is going to be going to your local dealer and taking the Elite Shootability Challenge. Just ask them to put one in your hand, compare it to other bows, compare it to what you have now, and see what you think. Let the results speak for itself. Go check out Elite Archery. Ridge Rock Hunt Company is also a podcast partner. Derek Eves over there in Mississippi. He books hunts with vetted and trusted outfitters across the country. So if you're looking for that next experience you've been saving up for, perhaps that once in a lifetime hunt, and you want to do it with a quality and vetted outfitter, then give Derek a call. He'll work with you on all the details and find something that works for you. Ridge Rock Hunt Company, go check them out. Again, thank you guys for listening to another Fall Obsession podcast. Whatever platform you are streaming on, if it's an option, please be sure that you hit that follow or subscribe button, whatever they have there for you. And make sure your notifications are turned on if you can. That way you get notified every week when we drop a new podcast episode. And check us out on social media, all the major platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter/X, whatever it is now. And go to our website, fallobsession.com. We have all of our content filtering through that platform. It's a custom website designed to share everything as efficiently as we can with all of you, all the different hunting shows, films, podcasts, gear reviews, wild game recipes, everything that we're doing goes through that website. Go pick you up some apparel, support a small time hunting brand. And if you're not watching our shows on Carbon TV, you need to be. Texas Dirt and Midwest Mindset are our two hunting shows that stream on Carbon TV. And you can also catch this podcast streaming on there, as well as Couch Chats, which is our staff-inspired video podcast series that you guys can find on Carbon. So thank you for supporting Fall Obsession. That's all I have for you. We're heading on over to our conversation with Amy Hall. You guys are listening to another Fall Obsession podcast.
you got her, dude. She's down.
Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another Fall Obsession Podcast. My name is Sam, and this week my guest is a huntress, a outdoor enthusiast, and a mentor to many others, Miss Amy Hall. Welcome to Fall Obsession Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Sam. I really appreciate it. It'll be a fun conversation, I know.
I'm looking forward to it. The honor's all of ours. Real quick, just for our listeners that don't know anything about you or who you are, take us into a little introduction about yourself and your background and kind of paint us a picture about you.
And that sounds good. I'm Amy Hall. I hail from Middle Tennessee, just a little bit outside of Nashville. Have been here for a while. Love it here, but this was where I learned how to hunt as an adult. I didn't learn how to hunt until my early 30s. And so this was kind of the area that I learned how to do that in. I was originally from West Tennessee, which is like duck hunting mecca, and never hunted when I was growing up. So it truly just started with deer hunting and kind of went from there into duck hunting, birds, geese, turkeys, small game, all of that. It kind of just exploded. And truly, it started with the podcast, Her Wild Outdoors. And that was my gateway into learning how to hunt, was to talk to other women about how they did it. And it truly just opened doors wide to the whole hunting community. So
wow,
that's a little bit about me. I've worked in the outdoor community with our Tennessee Wildlife Federation for a couple of years, and now I work for Tetra Hearing, which is a hearing protection company for competitive shooters, hunters, but also anybody that works around loud equipment. So it kind of works out great to be able to still work in our industry. And I've got 2 teenagers and a little small farm in the back. So that's a lot of information, but that's me.
No, that's awesome. So you talked about being an adult onset hunter, basically, and starting into all this, in your 30s. You briefly mentioned the podcast. I want to get into that here in a second, but what piqued your interest initially? What got you initially into hunting at that age?
Well, I grew up camping and I grew up fishing. I've always fished small backyard ponds or creeks, rivers. So I was already kind of in that. They do say that fishing and small game is kind of that stepping stone into the hunting world. So I was always an outdoor person. But my ex-husband would go and he would bring home a deer once a year, and I wanted more. I was like, I need more to eat. I want more to cook. I want more variety, and thought, well, I could do that too. And so I went to a local hunter's education class and sat amongst a whole lot of young boys and me. It was great. It was a wonderful learning experience, and then just started in some friend's backyard, and it felt safe. I knew where I was. I was comfortable with where I was, and through trial and error started getting it. And a lot of trial and error. It's never easy getting started. took a lot of advice from friends and the online community on how to do things here or there. But truly, until you get into that circumstance, specifically field dressing, it took a while to kind of figure out how I could do it versus how somebody else did it. And we all kind of do it the same way, but there are little things that just work for you, that make things a lot speedier, which also makes your meat taste better, that makes everything more respectful to the animal. So it was a lot of trial and error, but eventually I got there.
Awesome. I want to
Mhm.
ask you specifically, with this being your background and your introduction into hunting in the outdoors, I want to ask you specifically about your first big game kill. Tell me
Mhm.
about it, because so many of us, including myself, I've talked to so many people that they grow up hunting from
Mhm.
kids, and even me, like looking back, I remember my first deer, but I also remember hunting with my dad before that and
Mhm.
everything, and so things like you're talking about, like the small little details, or the things that some people don't think about, the field dressing, whatever it might be. Like I remember that, but it
Mhm.
wasn't as a little kid, it wasn't that big of a moment in my mind looking back, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So tell me about your first big game kill.
It was it was kind of crazy. I went in that morning and I got in, and I have a phobia of ants. I know it is the most ridiculous phobia you could ever have. They're teeny tiny, but they have numbers on their side. And so I get up to the tree stand, and I've been working all preseason, getting everything ready, watching cameras, everything like that. And I'm hunting on 5 acres, just praying that something is going to come through to the water source. In between food and water, I'm their pathway through. So I'm just praying that something comes through. And so I'm going in, I have my headlight on, and I'm coming up to the stand, and the ladder is covered in fire ants.
Oh,
And I know that this is ridiculous. I know that this is not a snake. It's not, it's not this dangerous situation, but it's ants, and it's my phobia. So I think I texted my ex at the time, and I said, the stand's covered in ants. And he was like, well, you can come home, or you can pull your big girl pants on and get up there. And I was like, well, of course I'm gonna get up there. So I'm just brushing things off as I get up there. Um and it was just one of those mornings that I felt like something was gonna happen. You have those. You
yeah.
have those where you wonder, is this the day? Is this really? But I thought, I'm fighting for this. This Something's gonna happen. And it was early on in the season, so it's hot in Tennessee. And I get up there, and one of my favorite things, and I've passed it on to my kids, is what wakes up first, the squirrels or the birds. And sometimes it's one and sometimes it's the other. But the sun came up that morning, and a doe came around, and she got within shooting distance. It was bow only, it's archery only in that area. And I got my first deer, and it was, I'm shaking. I still get the shakes. I think I get them more now when my kids are hunting. Just watching them and being excited for them, I get much more shaky in that moment. But I get the shakes right before, and then as I am on target and about to let go, everything's still. And it's almost like that focus comes in, and take a deep breath, and then you blow it out and let it go. And I knew it was a great hit. It was a great, the arrow went straight through. She dropped not too far. I mean, it was like, you hear, oh, she only went 10 yards, or you only went 10. This was probably 35, 40. Like it's still not that far, but enough that I kind of had to maneuver through. And And I remember getting there and being very emotional about the whole, because it had been 2 years of me sitting there without seeing anything or having the opportunity for something to be close enough
Yeah.
to take that shot. Um and I'd even like put flags out at the distance because I didn't have a rangefinder yet or anything like that. So I would measure it out and had flags so that I knew it was 10 yards, 15 yards, 30 yards, how far. And so it was very emotional kind of leading up to that moment. And then I got emotional because I had young kids at home. And when I went to field dresser, she had milk. And so my heart just sunk because I'm having this. People talk all the time about how hunters have to be these hard, like non emotional about taking a life, and it's not that way at all. It's actually very emotional. And I knew that she was food for my family. I knew that I had had a great shot. I knew that it was an ethical kill. She went down quickly, but it just had that moment. And it
Yeah.
was late on in the season. They can hold milk way past their fawns, needing them even after weaning. So it just was one of those moments that I had to walk through. And but at the same time, it was that sense of, look, I did it.
Yeah.
It was, and I think that, I mean, seeing both of my kids get deer in their life, and being alongside of them when they do that, it makes me look back and kind of feel like a kid in that, because it's a circumstance where you've done everything that you could possibly do to learn how to do something, but until you walk through that moment, you don't know what it's going to feel like. So it was a pretty great circumstance to walk through, and then to show up at the processor. I process now my own stuff, but at the time, to take the deer to the processor, this is my first deer,
Yeah.
and they were walking me through everything. So I really did feel like a student at the moment walking through it all. So it was a great experience.
That's an awesome story. I appreciate you sharing that. But
Yeah.
I love what you were talking about with, the emotion behind it all and everything. I
Mhm.
actually just got done a couple weeks ago recording a podcast. I only bow hunt myself
Mhm.
personally, and I got done recording an episode just talking about why that is. And
Mhm.
I brought up in that episode that if hunting was only about the kill itself, like if there was nothing else, if no other factor was involved, it was just the basic form of killing an animal, I probably wouldn't do it,
Yeah.
because that's just, I just don't, I'm not a, for lack of a more sensitive term, I'm not just this crude savage killer, and
Mhm.
there's
Yeah.
so much more to hunting and everything that goes with it. And you painted a great picture of that, in that it's, there's an emotional level, there's a respect level that's there, and these animals have a purpose, right? And that's
Mhm.
that's food on our table. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
It's one of those, I say it a lot, and it's one of those where you learn, you do, and you teach, and that's
Hmm.
kind of how you pull it all together. I've had the opportunity, having kids, to be able to pass that on. My daughter, actually being 16 when she took her first year, she had the opportunity to teach alongside of it, because the person that she went with did not know how to field dress, and she had been with me as many times as she had, being able to see that she was able to walk through that and teach. And she said, it turns it from just being an experience to passing it on. And when you get to go through all of those moments by learning, doing, and teaching,
Hmm.
um, it creates a different hunter when you're able to do that. And it's one of my favorite things. I took two girls duck hunting in Texas recently who were competitive shooters, had never been wing shooting or hunting at all. And well, one had been gun hunting for deer and turkey, but never ducks. And I just sat back pretty much the whole first morning and just let them have that experience. And I watched the expressions on their faces and answered the questions that they had and celebrated with them as they had their moments. But that's one of my favorite things, is just to walk along somebody and see the success that they have, whether it's a kill or it's a learning experience that they have. That's all a success. So
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite things.
It sounds like the mentorship role, or the part that plays in your life, it sounds like that came very naturally to you, as time went on.
Yeah, and I don't know if it has to do with motherhood or if it has to do with just something that's innate. I grew up with 4 siblings. I'm the oldest, so it's kind of automatically there. And then I worked in healthcare for a long time, so that's built in. When you're in healthcare, any type of healthcare, you're always teaching and learning. So I think it's probably a combination of all of it. But truly, being a mom has created that sense of wanting to see others succeed and grow and learn. But I don't know, the way that I started in the hunting part of it, I was the student. So I like to pass on information the way that I would have liked to have received it. And I did receive it in a lot of ways. So it's really just passing it on.
Yeah. Part of my preparation for having folks like you on the show is, if there's content out there, which typically there is, that you're involved in this case, your podcast and everything, I typically spend some time, for lack of a better term, binging it. So
Yeah.
I've listened to your show quite a bit, and it was an episode from a while back, and I don't remember unfortunately now I don't remember the name or the time frame, but you talked about, I think you made a comment kind of in passing actually, about taking like 120 kids or something like that duck hunting. And I stopped for a second. I was like, holy cow, that's a lot of responsibility.
It was a great experience, and luckily I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
It was a full-on team and volunteer effort when I was working with the Federation. And Dr. Duck came over and helped mentor, but that's a huge undertaking, and it's not for the sleight of heart. It definitely required a lot of organization, but a lot of volunteers. We really relied on those guides and the people that opened up their blinds to those kids. And honestly, it was more than half the kids had never hunted before. So it was a really cool experience to see them walk in and experience that. It was really nice.
That's awesome. Wow. So I want to talk a little bit about your podcast and everything that you do through that realm, because speaking from experience, podcasting is a lot of work, and what you're already going on this journey into hunting and your own identity as a hunter. What inspired you to start a show, and what were the origin stages of that like?
It actually started by me being a guest host for somebody out in California. It started with 12 episodes, and I really appreciated his viewpoint of it, because he said, I've interviewed women before, but I can only, he said, I can't empathize. I can sympathize with a woman and I can have my perspective of it, but I can't empathize on the same level. So he invited me to host a couple of episodes and have those conversations. And when that was over, I didn't want the conversation to end. I wanted to keep going. And so that's how Her Wild Outdoors started. It filled a void, because at the time, I didn't know many women around me geographically that hunted. So reaching out to people, whether they were, in the Southeast or the North, or out Midwest, or out in California or Oregon or even I got to have conversations with people from New Zealand and all over. So it really did open my eyes to how there are real women who might not have a ton of followers out there, who might not even be on social media all that much, but they're doing it. And they might be single, they might be students, they might be moms who are just trying to balance it, or they work a full-time job and they really work around vacation time trying to fit it in. There are just all different types of women out there, and also men who support those women in their lives, whether they're daughters or spouses or girlfriends or sisters, or even just friends. Having them on and getting their perspective of what it was like to walk along somebody that was female in their lives. So it even though I didn't necessarily hunt what they hunted or hunted in a terrain they hunted in, there was always something, and you probably get this too. There was always something that I related to.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, if I have that one thing that I'm relating to them on, then there are going to be a ton of people out there who can find that common ground. And a lot of it was just we're all hunters, or we all fish, or we all love to be in the outdoors. There was always something very foundational that we could relate on, but usually it was one statement that you go, yes, I get that. Or that's how she did it. I want to try it that way because it's taking way too much energy, way too much time to do it the way that I've been doing it. So it might just be something that works for me too. Or I tried hunting out west one time and this is what worked for me. And so it might just inspired me hearing their stories to go out west and hunt mule deer in Montana. And so it definitely broadened my horizons and opened my eyes, but it also just allowed, I mean, you and I were storytellers.
Mm-hmm.
At the basic part of it. That's how I think I did a thing for NWTF one time, and that was one of the things that just kind of popped out of my mouth was this is how people have told their stories and how we have shared history since the beginning is by storytelling. So we're just the keepers of history in a different kind of way. And I love that.
That's an awesome way to put it. I've never had anybody quite sum it up like that, but that you hit the nail on the head with that one. That's awesome.
I love that part though, because there were women that I talked to and they were like, why would you want me to speak on your podcast? I don't have a story. And by the end of it, we're either rolling in laughter over something, or we're finding that common ground, or we're crying or cursing. I don't know what it is, but it was there was always a story that came out of it. And I think that that's a powerful tool to find what your story is. And I was very honored to be part of them learning their stories and being able to share that.
Yeah. You listening to your episodes and your show, you jump right in, and yeah, you are able to make that connection very early with your guests for sure. And I can appreciate that too. And I don't know, there's something about just hunting and podcasting, and for me, keeping it casual and low key, because like even to this day, I have guests on our show that, you know, they've never been on a podcast before in their life. They never thought they would be on one in the first place. And I extend the invitation to have them on, and you can see their nerves and how tense they are at the very beginning. But once you just start talking about hunting, just as general of a topic as it is hunting, everything just calms down. And by the end of it, they could host the episode, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, and that it's awesome to see what that can, the power that has in this atmosphere. So
I agree. I think that you'll notice, and you probably did notice, there's no video for my podcast, and that's purposeful. for two reasons. Number one, most of the women that I talked to had never been on a podcast before, and the distraction of video can be a little much for
That's true.
somebody. And so I just went vocal, and I would start out, "Hey, how are you?" on video, and then I said, "Okay, we're going to switch it off, and we're just going to have a conversation." The other reason is the visual of a woman. I think sometimes it can be that way for a man as well, but the visual of a woman gets judged before their story. And so having just their story being told versus the distraction of what they look like gives power to their voice versus the visual of what they look like in the beginning. You can always go and find what they look like in their pictures and things like that. So it's not completely disguising who they are, but it just gives power to their voice. And I had talked to a couple of women before starting the podcast, and that was kind of the conclusion that my little friend group came to was, I think that this might be a good choice. It might change, it might evolve, there might be other ways that it goes in the future, but it worked for me and for the ladies that I talked to.
That's an interesting take. I've never thought of it quite like that myself.
It's
But
not wrong. It's
no,
not right
to
or
your
wrong
point,
either way.
you're not wrong in any sense of the form. Like and it's applicable to women and men, as
Yeah.
you said yourself, because there's the old saying of don't judge a book by its cover, and you could have anybody on your show. Doesn't matter who they are or what they do, and
Mhm.
somebody takes one look at an individual, just in a photograph, and that sometimes can decide whether or not they're going to hit play. And
Yeah.
that's an interesting outlook on that, and a lot of forethought into your show from that standpoint. So awesome.
Well, it was also me coming fresh into it as well. I don't mind it as much anymore, years now down the road, but me, myself, and I, it allowed me to have like a sticker up here that said, "Don't say." And
I still do that all the time.
it's the amount when you go back through them and you start counting up or you start listening to it definitely created a place where I slowed my conversation and waited for words versus trying to fill it. I still say it all the time, but I did have signs that saying, "Don't say."
No, it's not
Just
a bad thing. I think back to when our show started, because we didn't start doing the video side of it. We're at almost 200 episodes now on our show, and we didn't start doing videos until like 90, 100, somewhere in that range.
Mhm.
And I think back to the very beginning. I go back and listen to those episodes sometimes as a reminder how far we've come. But thinking back to, origin stage, it's just like, yeah, this is a good call to not do videos, not just because we look like a bunch of goobers, but also some of our filming locations or recording locations probably weren't the most appealing, I would say. So
I was probably in the same. There were a couple of podcasts that kids had to be doing things, and I was in a closet doing a podcast.
I,
So
I've
you do what you got
recorded
to do.
I've recorded in a closet before. I recorded in my garage before. And at the very beginning, when we started our show, I recorded multiple episodes in the cab of a pickup truck, like just parked in a parking lot or in a driveway,
Yeah.
where it's quiet and calm and everything. I've done that as well. So
Yeah, you just do what you've got to do.
yeah.
One of my favorite podcasts that I did, I've done a couple in person where we've been on location, and those are my favorite because
Aren't
of
they the best?
it's the energy that happens with them. I mean, this is fun, this is
Yeah.
fine, but it's coming fresh off of a hunt and having that conversation right away, face to face, creates a different dynamic
It
that
is it
you
is a
can't
whole nother
replace.
energy, a whole nother
Mhm.
energy. And when we like very beginning, we would record and if it was virtual, it'd just be on a phone call. So there wouldn't be a video with that either. And those were good. A lot of opportunities when you do the virtual thing like this to
Mhm.
record with people that you're not, physically close to location wise or anything. And but the in-person podcasts, to this day, and they always will be my favorite. And I think back to
Mhm.
last year when I went on my very first mule deer hunt that I've ever been on and killed my very first mule deer with a bow, getting to sit in camp with two of my good friends that night and recap the whole thing.
Yeah.
To this day and probably forever, it's going to be one of my favorite podcast episodes. And I go back and listen to it for sentimental reasons because it's
Yeah.
special to me. But for me, when I go back and listen to that, I can feel the energy after
Mhm.
that hunt, and I'm reliving that energy. That same energy is now back all of a sudden,
Yeah.
and it's just, I don't know, it's rejuvenating almost, and
It's similar to having antlers hanging.
yeah.
It's being able to sit around your dining room table and eat a meal and be able to tell the story at the same time,
Hmm.
but reliving that story and being able to hear it. I recorded both of my kids' first deer
Oh wow.
kills, and I will forever be able to go back. They'll be able to hear it. They'll be able to hear it was this big. Um, those kind of stories, but they'll be able to hear their emotions in it from when they were really young and walking through it, and their sweet memories to be able to go back and listen to, not just mine, but everybody's.
Yeah,
Each person that we interview is able to do that. This was my story, go listen to it. Um, or if they want to relive that moment, they can always go back and listen to it. So it's very special, not just for me, but for everybody who was involved.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Mhm.
Tell
Yeah.
me about the name for your show, Her Wild Outdoors. Where did that come from?
Um, man, it's so hard picking a name
Yeah.
when you're not necessarily a brand, or you're not necessarily something that's already out there that you're building upon. I threw around a whole lot of different things, but at the end of the day, I didn't want it to be pigeonholed into just hunting. I wanted it definitely to be more centered around the outdoors. Hunting is the majority of what the conversations are, but there's also fly fishermen, and there's hikers and campers. And so it's a little mixture of everything. And so I wanted it to be wild at the same time because we're out in the wild. But it also was a play on words because I feel like it brings me into that wild part of it as well, where you grow up needing to be in a box and you have to follow the rules and you have to just follow the line that's laid out for you. It creates a place where you yourself can be wild. And then, of course, her, because it
Mhm.
was mainly for women in the outdoors and the men who supported them. So that's kind of how it was a little play on words with the wild part, but I definitely wanted it to be simple and easy to understand what it was going to be about.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I want to ask you about an experience, and you referenced it earlier, and that was Montana mule deer.
Yeah.
Because you've talked at the beginning about your background and just the part of the country where it all began for you, but
Hmm.
then you're going out west, and I myself am I would consider myself a very novice hunter out west. I've had the opportunity to go on several different hunts out west now for pronghorn and mule deer. I've learned a lot. I
Hmm.
still don't know a lot, but I want to hear about your experience going out there.
It was a bit of I had had shoulder surgery that July. I had completely torn my shoulder when I dislocated it pulling back on
Mm,
my bow. And so the first part of July, I mean, I have a pin in my shoulder, and I had to have the whole labrum completely reattached.
Oh, wow.
And when I told my surgeon, I said, okay, but at the beginning of November, I'm going out west, and I'm going to need to shoot a gun, and I'm going to need to wear my pack. And he went, no way. I said, yes, way. In fact, one of his statements was, well, can somebody else just shoot it for you? And I said, no,
No,
A,
that's not how it works.
illegal, but B, that's my tag.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be my hunt. And so I worked really hard to be able to get range of motion back. And instead of taking a 308 that was really heavy and packed the punch, I took a 243, and which is a fabulous gun, to be able to, I mean, there was no way I could draw back. I'm still working back to that, but that 243 really helped out in being light and being very consistent in a shot. And so I was able to be ready to go. But it was a girlfriend that I'd actually been that I'd interviewed twice. We had a great conversation on the word hunter versus huntress in one of the conversations, which was a fun one. But she is a young woman who invited me out, and I drew a tag. So drove from Nashville to pretty much central northern Montana.
It's a haul.
It is a haul. Had a great cooler in the back, and I was ready to go with my pack and my gun. And we were out there for almost a week. It was warmer in the season than it normally was. And so the mule deer were not migrating through the pass at all. We had a little bit of snow one of the days, and we got to experience that. But I'll tell you, one of the moments that I had out there, the wind blew, and the way that the wind came in, it was coming straight at me, and I smelled elk for the first time. Just smelled them. I got goosebumps all over. It was like I turned to my friend and I said, smell elk. And she goes, yeah, that's elk. They're probably like 2 miles away. And I said, but they're close. She goes, not really, but okay.
You are the second person in 2 podcasts that I've done to tell me that they have smelled elk. That's awesome.
It's this sweet, musky smell that is different than anything else I've ever smelled. And it was just this automatic, that is what that is. But I jumped ahead just a little bit. The whole time that I was prepping to go out there, we're flat here. I mean, we have a little bit of mountains in the eastern part of Tennessee where the Smoky Mountains are, but where I am, it's pretty flat. You got to find a hill to walk to really work on your endurance. And I'd put 40 pounds in my pack and just gruel it out in the heat of the summer, which doesn't quit being hot until November. So that really helped getting ready, getting food together, figuring out. That's the fun part that I like, is the organization of what do you need and what do you not need, how light can your pack be, and what do I need to take with me. I didn't know that bear spray doesn't work under a certain temperature.
I didn't know that either.
It's on the can. It gives you a little warning on there. If you are below a certain temperature, it's not reliable. And so I went out. I had my 9mm with me, which is perfectly fine, but it's not gonna do the safety part of it that you need for it to do. So I had a 44 mag with me, which was kind of comical to see because I'm a very petite person. I'm not tall by any means. I'm right under 5'2". So this big 44 mag looks like a monster of a gun on me. But truly having the rifle and having the pistol and having the revolver, and the other people in our group had them as well. We weren't as worried, especially with the temperatures dropping as they were. It was more the cats out there that we were needing to keep an eye on. But it was a great experience. It kind of combined my love for camping and hiking. And I will tell you, those poles were a huge help to me for balance, climbing on rocks and getting up high. And I don't know, it was way different than Eastern hunting. And I'm not much of a tree stand hunter. I will tree stand hunt, but I would much rather be on the ground and kind of blind myself in after I found sign. And that's one of my favorite ways of hunting, is on the ground and being able to move around. I don't like to sit still. So I have a little bit of a different take than most Eastern tree hunter and blind hunting people, but it was a blast. I did not get a buck by any means, but I did not come home empty-handed. I came home with a doe. I was not going to let that tag go unfulfilled.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, do you know that if you're over there, always get a wolf tag? Always get your over-the-counter wolf tag. It's $50. We walked up on a guy. We ended up in the coulees instead of in the mountains. We ended up in the coulees at one point, and we saw some bucks and knocked on somebody's door. And most of them are ranchers. So if you get a wolf on their property, they are very, very happy.
Yeah.
Especially being up near the Canadian border, just being much closer to where there are a lot of them up there and a lot of cattle that need to be protected. So for $50, it's worth going ahead and having that tag. And then you don't have to worry about, was it self-defense or was it you're legal in that part of it. But you don't have to draw for the tag. You can just get it at the store. And it's kind of nice just to have that in your pocket no matter what.
Yeah, for sure. Montana is a beautiful place to hunt and to just have an experience in the outdoors, regardless of your kill. I was blessed. That's the only state I've been pronghorn hunting in was Montana. And I went 2 years in a row, 2018 and 2019. I was actually very fortunate. Again, I'm a bow hunter. So I was very fortunate. Didn't realize till later how fortunate I was the first year to shoot a Pope and Young buck with my bow, my first trip up there. Super blessed. Yes, super blessed to fill my tag. But what I learned, and obviously now being able to reflect on it, is I think the experienced wise I drew more from was the second year. And I ate a tag sandwich the second year after a week of hard hunting, but we were in a different area, and the hunt itself, the scenery, just all of it, the adventure that it was, you can't make it up. And you can't, no photograph, no hunting show, no video that you can take replaces or can sum up being there. And the second year for me, as frustrating as not going home with one was, that one meant just as much to me, if not more, in a different way than the first year did. Just because of Montana.
Those hunts, I've had plenty of tag soup hunts in my experience. And as long as you walk away having learned something, it is definitely a success. Being in a place where it's not a usual location where you can learn something new is exciting. But yeah, Montana is gorgeous. And I'm lucky enough to have friends there that will just pal around with me and take me where their favorite places are and be able to see the beauty of it. think Montana, Wyoming's beautiful when I've gone through and driven through and visited. And then Colorado, of course, is another one of my favorites. One day I'll get to hunt those places. I tried drawing this year for an elk deer combo tag in Montana and did not get lucky. Maybe next year, we'll see.
Yeah.
But that's a hope. That's
Yeah.
definitely a hope. I've hunted Texas for turkeys. That was my first turkey was a Rio in Texas with NWTF, and it was a hard hunt. It was
Yeah.
not easy. I think one of the things I said was, well, if I had just come down here and gotten a turkey, I think my expectation would have been way up here for every single turkey hunt. And turkeys I have a love-hate relationship with turkeys.
Yeah.
They are, it is so amazing to get them to talk back to you and have a conversation and draw them in and have that connection. But goodness gracious, they beat me out more times than ever.
Oh yeah. I am not an expert turkey hunter by any means. And my passion lies with whitetail down here for sure.
Mhm.
I don't spend near the time hunting turkeys that I do hunting whitetails down here. But again, it goes back to the experiences. Like and on top of that, I'm a part of a group of 4 of us that manage 807 acres down here for whitetail and pigs and everything. And
Mhm.
um, we have some turkey every now and then, but we really don't have a lot on our place. I don't know what it is. It just doesn't hold them. So that contributes to it. But this last year, this past spring, I actually had a buddy of mine that was like, "Hey, dude, you want to go turkey hunting with me opening weekend?" And I was like, "I hadn't been turkey hunting on opening day in a long time." And we didn't kill anything at all. We didn't even
Mhm.
see a tom. They weren't really playing that morning, but getting to hunt with him, a good friend of mine, getting to just be out there, springtime in Texas, everything was
Yeah.
green, watch everything come to life. And then they had a cool place and they had an old farmhouse on the place. And he's like, "Hey, we have a tradition after every opening day turkey hunt where we go back and we cook this ginormous breakfast on the camp stove." I'm like, "Heck yeah, man."
I'm
So
in.
yeah, I'm in. So
Yeah.
that was really cool. Just again, it's experience. And
Mhm.
I didn't even see a tom I could shoot, especially with my bow, but I'm never
Yeah.
gonna forget that hunt, and that's
Mm-mm.
what's cool. So
Yeah. Yeah. That Texas was my first experience with stepping over a rattlesnake.
oh
that was that was I tapped my camera guy in front of me and I said, "Hey, we just stepped over a rattlesnake." And he goes, "Amy, that's not funny." And I said, "I'm not joking." And it just like slithered right on into the trees. And he said, "Why did you not shoot it?" I said, "I'm turkey hunting. Why would I make noises to make turkeys go away?" And here in Tennessee, it's illegal to kill snakes.
Really?
So, and we have rattlesnakes here. I hunt a piece of property just a little bit. It's kind of on the Tennessee Alabama border, but it's very rocky, and there are quite a few rattlesnakes down there. But you just kind of learn how to meander past them and leave them in their element. And so I said, I'm used to just letting them go on by. It's not something that's outside of I just keep walking.
Yeah. All right, you've piqued my interest now. Why is it illegal to kill snakes?
So in Tennessee, you cannot kill anything that doesn't have a season. So you've got deer season, you've got turkey season, you've got trapping season, you've got coyotes are in season all the time. You just can't hunt them at night. You
Hmm.
have to hunt them during the day. So with snakes, we don't have a whole lot of rattlesnakes. So it's not like they're everywhere and they're a danger to, they usually stay in their space. And so most of the snakes that we have are rat snakes, just gray rat snakes or water snakes that aren't venomous. We do have copperheads and water moccasins. And then we've got two different types of rattlesnakes, but for the most part, you don't see a whole lot of that. Now, if it were a self-defense situation, 100%, I would shoot a snake in a heartbeat if I was in danger, if somebody around me was in danger. But they, I mean, true. My grandfather was a forestry guy. My mom always grew up around snakes. So we've just always, I don't know, relocated them or let them have their space, and it's been perfectly fine. But yeah, illegal in Tennessee to kill a snake.
Did not know that. We down
Mhm.
here in Texas, I guess you'd call it the Wild West. You got seasons and
You-
tags for turkeys and deer, and then upland and waterfowl. But
Mhm.
outside of that, for the most part, day or night, have at it. That's the
Yeah.
Texas mentality.
That it was my first time when I was in Texas. It was my first time hunting something in the evening, and that was a new experience for me. So it was. I enjoy all of my hunts that I've done in Texas. I've enjoyed. I really enjoyed this last one. It was just right after Christmas that we did this duck hunt. We were hunting with Ducks Unlimited, and just kind of showing the difference between competitive shooting and waterfowl hunting. And the night before we were flying out, I have a big dog, a really big dog, and he popped me in the cheekbone right here
Oh,
with his head. Not his fault by any means, but it cracked my cheekbone right here.
oh
And I
wow.
woke up the next morning with a full on black eye. So here I am walking through the airport with three shotguns and a black eye going to Texas. I'm sure that they thought, where is this girl going? We're not going to ask. So that was a fun, you never know
Yeah.
what you'll see in the video. I either had sunglasses on or they were shooting from this side. It's like, just don't get the black eye. It was a funny story that I had to repeat a lot. That's not your dog. And I said, yeah, my dog. It just happened. But I think that I don't even know where I was going with this. I enjoy hunting Texas every
Yeah.
time I've gone. I've always enjoyed it.
No, I've grown up hunting it obviously, it's always gonna have it's always home and it's always gonna have a special place in my
Mhm.
heart. I have hunted Texas in some unfavorable weather, both extremes, cold
Mhm.
and hot. I think about a couple years ago, and I've talked about it on our show before, but bringing my staff manager here at Fall Obsession down here to hunt pigs in July in Texas, because he's outside of our organization, he's a school teacher, so that's when he was on summer break, and he
Mhm.
wanted to come down. I said, "Hey man, come on, it's gonna be hot." And we were hunting Texas in the evening time. Sun's going down. It was still 110 degrees outside, and it was temperature wise, it was uncomfortable. But he was having a
Mhm.
blast. I was having a blast. We ended up getting him a pig. It was amazing, and
It was a good day.
yeah, it was a good day. We were soaked, but it was a good
Uh-huh.
day.
Yeah, that's like dove hunting, or we have a velvet hunt in August on a
That I
weekend.
wish we had. It would be so hot nobody would do it and it wouldn't be great. But
No,
I wish I could be somewhere with the velvet season for sure.
it's bow only here,
Yeah.
and it's private land only.
Okay.
So it's definitely, you have to know somebody or you have to own property, and then of course just bow hunting. But there have been some beautiful deer that have been taken velvet weekend, but it is hot. The
Mhm.
ticks are out, the mosquitoes are out. You are soaked in your clothes by the end.
Yeah.
And it's you might be done at 9 a.m. and you're still soaked.
I know
Yeah.
exactly what that feels like.
The humidity is lots of fun here. In the summertime, it's nothing to wake up to 100% humidity.
Oh yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No joke.
Yeah. Teaches you character.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I have another question for you. I
Mhm.
want to see where this goes with you and what your response is to it, because and that is, what makes up your identity? Because
Mm.
throughout our conversation, you've talked about your journey a little bit. You briefly mentioned your a previous background in like healthcare and that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. But what inspired me to ask this question was just simply your social media handle, because your social media handle is Amy Hall and then underscore Hunter. You have
Mhm.
it front and center there for everyone.
Yeah.
What is Amy Hall's identity look like?
I think it kind of goes back to like you were talking earlier in talking about your why. And I think that I was very straightforward with my handle, of course, because I
Mm-hmm.
don't want people to see that and be like, if they see it before they click on it, they know what they're going to get into.
Yeah.
It's not I've never been one to shy away from just being straightforward. It's always respectful, but I've never you're gonna get shot straight with me. It's There's never gonna be any kind of twiddling the thumbs or moving around or anything like that. So
Yeah.
that was no question whatsoever. It was just going to be straightforward. That's who I am. My why, I thought about that for a really long time one summer in putting that together because I was asked that question. And I wrote this big long page out of why. And I kept going, but that comes back to this, and that comes back to this, and that comes back to this. So there are all of these things that can go underneath the hunting part of it, but it always goes back to the why. And the why is because I can. That's it.
Yeah.
It's because I can. I grew up, like I said, in a place where I was surrounded by duck hunters and big deer. West Tennessee has big deer. And so I was surrounded by it, but I never did it. I was never not invited, but I was never invited. And so um, it just became my kind of like a mantra of because I can do it. I had to change spark plugs in a vehicle one time. Well, YouTube is great for
Yeah.
helping you figure that out, and I can do it. And so it really does just boil down to that. If I can do it, anybody else can do it. And so that kind of it seems simple. There's not a whole lot of um, it my handle's simple, my reason is simple. It's just because I can.
Yeah. I love it. That's awesome.
Hmm.
I've enjoyed our conversation first and foremost. This has been
Good.
awesome, and it's been great to get
Good.
to know you. I do have a couple other questions for you that we ask all of our first time guests on our show. We used to call them, they've had many names over the several years we've been podcasting. We had one guy that called them our our hot seat questions or our rapid fire, and I don't think
Okay.
either one of those are applicable. It's just I love hearing these answers is all it is.
Okay.
And the first one is, what is your favorite hunting memory to date, and tell us about it.
My favorite hunting memory to date, it ended in a successful hunt, but my favorite memory was being up in a tree stand and having an albino buck
Oh
go right
wow.
underneath my tree stand. And it's illegal in Tennessee to kill albino deer. So I just sat back and was able to watch it. And it hung around for about 30 minutes. And I got to see the struggles that it had with being able to see and being able to maneuver and things like that. Um, but I got the 8-point that came out after him, but it really that day had more to do with the experience that I had being able to just observe. And I think that that always reminds me that at the end of the day, we are visitors in these woods. They're not necessarily our home, like it is to them. And so it always is a reminder to me to be respectful and to observe and to learn and to grow. And there's always a new experience out there. So that's my favorite
That's
hunting
awesome.
day.
I love
Mhm.
that. Next question I have for you. There are so many different opportunities, so many different hunts out there that we all dream about or think about.
Mhm.
What's your bucket list, if you will, look like? What are some of the most anticipated hunts that you would like to do one day that you haven't been able to yet?
I still want to fill that mule deer buck tag.
Yeah.
It is, since I didn't get that experience, I definitely want to experience that. So it always was, I want to hunt the Bob Marshall and get a mule deer. But truly, if I can go back with my girlfriend, and her husband and have a great mule deer hunt with them, it would be a sweet experience. But I would love to go up into Alaska and do some really great fishing, because
Oh yeah.
that's where I started, was fishing. So I'd love to get up there and do some fishing. But yeah, I need some retribution on that mule deer tag.
Awesome.
Now,
Good
if
stuff.
all bets are off and I could pick anywhere, I'd be hunting tar in New Zealand.
Okay.
Mhm.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be incredible.
Yeah,
Well, Amy, I really appreciate you coming on our show and taking some time to
of
share with us your
course.
journey this evening. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. The pleasure's ours. Tell our listeners real quick where they can find you, your shows, everything you got going on.
Okay. Like you said, Amy Hall _Hunter. That's where I am on Instagram. Ask any questions. I'm an open book. And I usually have somebody that, if you've got questions that I can't answer, I know somebody who can probably answer them. Her Wild Outdoors is on any podcast listening that you've got, whether it is Apple or Spotify or anything like that. You can find it anywhere to listen to. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, folks, if you're tuning in, be sure that you go follow Amy and her journey and her wild outdoors. Listen to the show. A lot of awesome stuff going on over there. If you haven't already, on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on, we appreciate you hitting that follow button. And with that, we're going to hang it up for this episode. And I'm back with you guys again next week for another one. Catch you then.